Do you ever wonder what it's like to live with pre-birth memories, with that memory of the other side constantly in your mind? Most people assume that it would make life easier, that it's a step up or a cheat code, so to speak. But actually, in some ways, it can make life more challenging. Today, I'm going to share with you why. I've shared about my pre-birth experiences before, but it's usually in a podcast interview with someone else, and there's limited time to really be able to dive in and share the details. This time, I'm going to share my pre-birth memories from the perspective of how they have impacted my life. There's 4 main memories that I'm going to dive into today. The first one is the one that I share the most commonly, and it's my memory of the light. It is the strongest, most powerful memory I have, and it is one that has never left me. I never suppressed it. It stuck with me for as long as I can remember. This memory is impossible to put into words. Not just because there aren't words for it, but we don't have a framework to understand or describe it at all. And everything about it is so far beyond our experience here that it sounds like I'm making things up if I try to describe it. What I remember is more the feeling of what it was like. My experience happened outside of time and space and beyond the 5 senses, so it's not like I have a visual of what this looked like. Interestingly, I do have a memory of sound. That's the only one of the 5 senses that I brought back from this experience. But what it felt like was absolute devastating bliss. It was as if I was in the center of a hurricane of the most brilliant light I've ever seen. Imagine the brightness of the sun and amplify it exponentially and increase it until it is the size of a universe. And imagine this universe is all filled with trillions of suns that are each a billion times brighter than the sun and that are moving in unison and harmony like a flock of birds moving together, or like snowflakes circling around a street light. And that every light is so bright that it would literally consume physical form and blind human eyes. It shines with the metaphysical light of all-consuming, unconditional, fiery love. This light is eternally existing and being what it is and unfolding and expressing its essence all around you in every direction, completely enveloping you with its absolute beauty and perfection. And the feelings that you feel in the light are not feelings that we have here, which is part of the reason why it's impossible to describe. It feels like safety and security and nourishment times 1,000. It feels like devastating bliss to the point where you cannot handle it, but yet it continues to build and build and build. It's feelings we don't have words for. It's beyond bliss. It's something very precise and specific that is beyond love and bliss and nourishment, and we don't have words for it. And it's very frustrating because I want people to be able to experience this. If everybody knew what this felt like, we wouldn't have problems in the world. We wouldn't have violence. We wouldn't have hungry people. There would be nobody in the prisons. The light was unconditional love and ultimate peace, bliss, joy. But saying these words is like a stick figure compared to the Mona Lisa. I feel frustrated with myself saying these words because it's not just love and peace. It's peace times 1,000,000,000,000. Oh, it's just so frustrating. I wish that I could convey this. But imagine the most blissful you've ever felt, combined with the most peaceful you've ever felt, combined with the most loved and nourished that you've ever felt. And try in your mind to expand that and expand it and expand it and keep pushing the boundaries of how that would feel. And then combine that with no self-awareness of yourself as a separate entity. Erase all guilt and shame and judgment towards yourself. In that space, you're fully and completely accepted, and there's no thought that you might have done something wrong, worthy of judgment or shame, because you're perfect. perfect. You're completely innocent. You don't know the concept of right and wrong in that space. You're like a newborn baby, just being and experiencing. You can't imagine a situation where you wouldn't be completely accepted and nourished and held and deeply loved. I want to think of something to try to compare the bliss to, but there just isn't anything. There isn't anything. The only thing that I can compare that bliss to is other times that I've had spiritual experiences. So when I had my spontaneous out-of-body experience as a teenager, I felt the bliss again. But that's the only thing I can compare the bliss of the pre-birth memory to, is another experience of transcendent divine bliss. I've just never experienced it in this world outside of that. There's a couple of ways that this memory affected my life. The first one is that it caused me to pursue divine union above all else in my life. It's always been the driving force of my life. I've just never been interested in the pleasures that the world has to offer. Like, I never got into drinking or drugs. I've never been one to watch TV. Just never been interested. The only thing that I've really been interested in is feeling good on the inside, finding inner peace, experiencing God's presence, as I said, in the Christian faith that I was raised in, experiencing divine bliss and divine union. So I've been very drawn to faiths that allow you to openly pursue that path, like Hinduism, Buddhism, mystical paths. Even though I was taught that they were demonic, I just couldn't shut off the draw to that type of path. If I had my way, I would have been a yogi meditating in the Himalayas, and I would have given up everything to experience divine union. The other way that it affected my life is that it caused me to be very sincere about my Christian faith, because I was kind of like raised into the faith. As a very young child, I was taught about God through the perspective of the Christian faith. I was told that everybody had a God-shaped hole in their hearts, and I just assumed that my pre-birth memories of divine bliss was that God-shaped hole, and that everybody else had the same memory and the same desire. And it caused a lot of confusion for me as a child, just not understanding why people cared about things like money and drinking and partying, and why people were so empty inside, like just living lives of emptiness and misery, like why people weren't actively pursuing divine bliss and connection with God. I actually understood the Christian faith differently as a child than most of the people around me, because when I would read the passages on judgment and people falling on their face in fear before the throne of God, I was reading into those passages divine bliss, because I actually remember what it's like to be in the presence of God. And so when I read these passages about people falling on their face before the throne of God, I just read into that they're overcome with bliss. Their body gave out. Other people were reading wrath and judgment, and I was understanding these people are in ecstasy right now. It wasn't until I was a young adult and a lot of my generation started leaving the faith because of passages like these about fear and judgment that I started to realize, wait a minute, they have no idea about the bliss. They have no idea about the all-consuming love. Like, they think it's anger and judgment. It's love and bliss. And that's where I really started to part ways and move in the direction of a more mystical understanding, and ultimately discovered the near-death experience community. The second memory that I want to share about is a memory of choosing my hair color. Now, I don't actually remember being in heaven, going through the life selection process and making that choice. But I remember as a young child knowing that I had made that choice. The moment this became a conscious thought for me, I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and I was in Canada. So I grew up in Michigan in the United States, but every year my family would travel up to Canada for a vacation in the fall, and we would stay in these cabins in the woods. Anybody who's been in the Northeast in the fall knows it's absolutely gorgeous, with trees turning all colors under the sun, but the red oak trees are the most nostalgic. And I remember that I was outside gathering acorns to set out for squirrels outside the cabin with my sister. At this time in my life, I was still very connected to the other side. And I remember knowing as I was gathering these acorns, just knowing that I had picked my red hair. And the reason why this memory stands out to me is because my mom used to tell me that my hair was auburn red, like the color of the oak trees and the acorns in the fall. And so this was very meaningful to me. And when she would say that, I would remember, yeah, I know I chose my red hair. And I knew why I chose it. I chose it to remind me of unconditional love, because red is the color of love and passion in this world. And I chose that hair color to keep me on track with my purpose, because I thought that at some point in my life, I was going to need the reminder, because loving unconditionally was going to get very challenging. The main way that this memory has affected me is that it's fulfilled its role. It's helped me keep on track with unconditional love. At this point in my life, I very much understand why I gave myself that reminder. I spent most of my life in open-hearted love and service to an extreme, to the point where I allowed myself to be taken advantage of over and over and over. And I continued giving every ounce of myself to people who did not appreciate it. And then I went through a series of challenges in my life where people treated me disrespectfully and manipulatively, especially when I went through my deconstruction. And as I began to go through those challenges, I began to understand this is why people close themselves off in life. Because we're all born innocent and connected to the other side. Most children are filled with open-hearted goodwill towards people. It's easy for them to forgive. It's easy for them to love and keep on loving. But you reach a point in your adult life where that's not being received, where it's being taken advantage of, where that's not being reciprocated to you, where people are actually being manipulative towards you, and you start to shut down and you start to pull back into yourself and think about looking out for yourself and protecting yourself. And while it is very necessary to bring that open-hearted love and service into balance and make sure that you're also loving and caring for yourself and that you develop your voice and you're able to set proper boundaries, many people don't actually ever come into that balance. Many people just get hurt, they shut down, and they put up walls, and that's it. They shut themselves off from the mystical, they shut down their heart center, and they spend the rest of their lives not really being able to feel or experience heightened emotions of love and bliss and gratitude and inspiration and joy. Because I have this memory, because I have this constant reminder of what I came here to do, I've been able to be aware of those pitfalls when they arise in my life. And this way, this specific memory has benefited me in that it has helped me remember not to close off my heart. Or if I do end up in a place in my life where I feel like I have a lot of walls up, I have a lot of anger, I need to work on this, my hair color is just constantly reminding me, this is what you came here for. Don't accept this lower level of consciousness. Be willing to put in the work to continue to transcend, integrate into the human experience, and keep your heart open. The third memory that I want to talk about is what I've come to call Jesus in the Garden of Light. And I've actually created a painting of this one where I did my best effort to put into a visual what I experienced. I remember being in another reality where everything was made of light. It was the light of being. Everything was made up of it. The best way that I can describe it from a physical perspective is to imagine that you're in a really hot, steamy shower and the steam is encompassing you and surrounding you and filling the space in the bathroom. Well, that's what it was like, except instead of steam, it was light. And everything was made up of this light. And the light from one being or object would merge into the light from another being or object. And it was all the same thing. And carried within that light was that person or that object's essence. And everything merged and became one with everything else. The light of being was also joy. It was also innocence. And I remember being in this place of light. It felt like it was young souls, like baby souls. And we were just growing and being nurtured in this garden of light. We were completely innocent. We didn't know of the concept of the existence of evil. The idea that we could have made a mistake or been wrong or lacking in any way was completely foreign. And joy was literally the air we were breathing. It was the light, the essence that we were made of was innocence and joy. Everyone was absolutely harmonious. Nobody could imagine doing anything to hurt someone else. Like that's just, hurt wasn't a concept that existed there. Everybody was fully supported and nourished and loved and harmonious. And there were higher light beings there, of course, that were like growing and nurturing us. How this memory affected me is that it caused me to come in believing that things are supposed to be harmonious and loving and supportive. When I came in here and it was the complete opposite of that, my system was shocked to its core by the lack of awareness here. And by lack of awareness, I mean, to use Aaron Abke's terminology, there's a spiritual intelligence that collectively we're lacking here. So to use IQ as an example, let's say that a first grader understands that 1 + 1 = 2. But if you say, what's the square root of 678? They're not going to have an awareness of that answer. Intelligence is measured in levels of awareness, what a person knows. So it's the same thing with spiritual intelligence, or SQ. Our awareness of how reality operates increases as we grow in spiritual intelligence or spiritual awareness. And so here on this planet, collectively, when I was born in the 80s, we were at a first grade level of spiritual awareness. And we didn't understand basic concepts like universe is benevolent and harmonious. There is no separation between us. We're all connected on metaphysical level. To me, when I came in, that lack of awareness felt like a very low intelligence level, and it felt very, very scary to me. It felt like coming here to live with a bunch of first graders who were trying to like create an atomic bomb or something, and we're going to mess it up and blow the whole place up. Which goes to show that my level of spiritual awareness was dropping as soon as I came in here. Because if I had true spiritual awareness, I would have understood that it's impossible to mess things up. It's impossible for us to be hurt. There's nothing to be afraid of. I began to lose that very quickly coming in, and I was very quickly sucked into people's judgments. At the time that I came in the 80s, it was considered to be ridiculous and naive to think that everybody could get along. Peace and harmony were considered stupid ideals, right? So I suppressed the memory because I didn't want to be laughed at. I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to be made fun of or looked down on. But I've always had a very, very hard time understanding things like violence. Like to this day, I can't watch violent shows. I can't handle violent video games. I mean, I don't play video games or watch TV that much anyway, but I can't handle violence at all. Some people consider this to be a weakness. I actually think in some sense it might be myself, because I think that true embodied self-aware love would be able to allow other people to have their free will and to handle people making those types of decisions. Not saying that it's okay or it's morally good, but I would be able to handle it without it affecting my internal state. I cannot handle violence. It makes me feel sick. It makes me feel like depressed. Like how can people be like that? How can people do that to each other? I can't let my mind go there because it very quickly takes me to a dark place. So I believed for a long time that I was stupid and dumb for wanting peace on earth, for even thinking that that would be a possibility. But now I understand that I came here with that memory. My memory was actually triggered again when I read Howard Storm's book, My Descent into Death, and he described something similar. It flashed me back to my childhood memories. Oh yeah, I remembered this the entire time that I was a child. And there's a reason for that now, because I speak up about this now on my YouTube channel about how peace on earth is not only possible, it is inevitable, and we have to make choices to lead towards that. And there's still a lot of resistance towards it, but there's also a lot more people who are listening. And I will say, as a side note, that the collective consciousness has lifted in frequency considerably since the 1980s. And the fourth memory that I want to share about today is of what I call the healing place. And this isn't a specific memory, but it's more a collection of memories that get triggered whenever I hear certain music in this world. So I mentioned in the beginning that my memory of the music as something audible that I heard is the only five senses memory that I brought back with me. NDEers like Howard Storm and Renee Pasarov, just to name a couple, have experienced when they're out of body that everything is music. Everything is frequency or vibration. And once you reach an out of body state in a high enough state of consciousness, you can experience that frequency and vibration is all music. And I have very strong memories of the music. I remember angelic voices singing the most deeply comforting and nurturing music. I remember being in a dark space of healing and just completely energetically held in that music. And it's like the angelic beings are singing just for you. Like the whole song is just for you. That's how nurtured and loved you are. The embrace that you feel in a place like that is beyond anything that you can feel here. The closest that you can get here is a physical embrace of somebody holding you in their arms, and it does feel good to have that physical contact. It can make you feel nurtured or held, like if your grandma is hugging you and just squeezing you and making you feel so comforted. But there on the other side, you don't have the physical body to get in the way. You're held on a metaphysical or energetic level, which embraces your entire being in a way that we can't experience here. Here in the physical, we have a desire for safety, and we experience fear when we feel unsafe. But there on the other side, it's impossible to have a desire for safety or to feel fear because your very being is constantly held in the nurturance and nourishment of higher light beings, of your soul family, your soulmates, of source. It's just always there, and it's not just surrounding you, it's in you, it is you. You aren't separate from it. You can't experience a state of separation in which you feel unsafe or unheld. How this memory has affected me is that it has made me feel very homesick at times. Sometimes when I'm listening to meditation music, I'll hear something that sounds close or reminds me of what I heard or of that feeling. If I remember, I'll try to link some music clips in the description for people. This memory has caused me to feel very homesick and to struggle in some ways because I remember what that feels like and we don't experience it here. But it has also inspired me to be that in the world, to be what I want to experience in the world, to be that safe and loving and nurturing space for people here. And that comes with a lot of challenges because everybody's different. Not everybody wants to be hugged. There's some people who hate physical affection. Everybody is different in how they want to be listened to and how they want to be seen and how they want love expressed to them. And so it can be very challenging and complicated in this world to be love in a way that is so intuitive and natural. It's just part of the fabric of reality on the other side. But expressing it in the physical body is far more challenging. But I'm up for the challenge. That's part of the fun of being here because I know, because of my hair color, the reason that I'm here is to be unconditionally loving. And I also know that we can't really mess it up or make mistakes. So I'm up for the challenge. It's fun. It's fun to figure it out, have fun with it, experiment, see what I can create, see what kind of an impact that I can have. And that's the biggest takeaway that I brought with me from my pre-birth memories is just the fun of the challenge of what we are here to do. We're here to embody that light and love, to embody that divine bliss and express it into the world and make it physical and tangible in a way that other people can express it. We're here to let our very being be a work of art. Your being, your state of being, your state of consciousness, and how you express that in the world is the greatest work of art you will ever create. So make it as extravagantly loving as possible. And that's why my channel is titled Love Covered Life. And that's why my tagline is I help people to live their most extravagantly loving lives. Because that's my main takeaway from my pre-birth memories, is that is what it is all about. It is about being as extravagantly loving, growing in my ability to express that divine love here in a way that's meaningful and tangible for people. So go live your most extravagantly loving life. Check the description to the links for my Pay What You Can community, my paintings, my merch, and my course, Alchemy. Thank you so much for watching.